Hello and welcome back to my channel. Well, summer's quickly approaching and today we're looking at the Gardena Minimow, designed to cover smaller areas up to 2,700 square feet. Now, despite this being one of the cheapest robot mowers you can buy, it has a lot of compelling features. For example, it has self-recharging, also has the fact that it can go out every day, and it has a pretty unique cutting system. Instead of using a traditional lawnmower style blades, it actually uses razor blades, which are pretty easy to interchange. I think you can get like a pack of like 30 of them for about 10 bucks or so. Alright, so in this video I'll give you my pros, cons, tips and tricks, some what not to do. So let's go ahead and check out the Gardena Minimow. Well, I was not expecting it to snow in the middle of May, and this was a heavy snowfall, so a lot of the branches fell down. Hopefully it doesn't freeze because I just turned on my sprinkler system and that'll be a complete disaster. I don't think they have a robot that can fix sprinklers yet. Alright, so like a lot of these robotic mowers, they do require a perimeter wire. So what a perimeter wire does is it allows the robot to know the boundaries of your lawn. Also, if you have precious items like garden gnomes, it doesn't accidentally try to eat them up. Okay, so this is probably a given, but try not to install the perimeter wire when the snow is frozen because I was definitely struggling trying to get this shovel into the ground, and I thought the burying method would be not too bad. Well, it literally took me like 2 hours just to get to a couple feet. Alright, let's go ahead and take a moment here and admire this guy's lawn. This guy has probably the world's greenest lawn, so good job guy in the video. Okay, so if you're not a huge fan of reading instruction manuals like me, I like to watch these videos, and Gardena provides a couple, kind of showing you how to install the perimeter wire and also how to pair up with the app. One thing he's demonstrating is you actually have to create an island around physical objects, and you don't want to overlay the boundary wire, you actually want to go out in the opposite direction. Well, if you're one of the lucky few, you might be able to get a service technician to install the wire for you. Now, they use this fancy machine that buries the wire, which is more durable than having it on top of your lawn. So, my experience with the installation wasn't too bad. This is the first time I've done that, so it definitely took longer than it probably should. I think it took about 11 hours to do my entire yard. Now, right now, I'm installing the perimeter wire. As you can see, I'm actually hammering the wire down into the ground. I don't know why, but I'm just worried about the wire to pop up and accidentally get cut. I have seen other users where they experience this, so I'm trying to get the wires buried into the ground as possible. Now, towards the end of the guide wire, you do have to create this little loop and attach the three wires together. So basically, you just clip the end of the perimeter wire to where you want the guide wire to end, and then you just combine the three wires with a special clip, which is basically you squeeze it together and it actually will connect all three wires together. Alright, once we got the guide wire installed and also the perimeter wire, now we have to install the transformer. One thing to know is I'm shocked how short the AC cable is. I literally had to put it up against the extra boxes. Not sure where all these boxes are, but I'm pretty sure half of them don't work. This was from the previous owner, so don't judge me with all the wires that are hanging off on the side of my house. Alright, so next we're going to install the 28 volt line. This is the low powered side. One thing to note is there is an eco mode. So for example, you're storing the robot over in the winter time, it actually can shut off the perimeter wire so it's not drawing as much power, which is a kind of nice feature. Alright, so let's go ahead and feed this wire through and we'll hook it up to a docking station. Alright, so if we flip over the base plate, you may notice this groove. That's for the guide wire. So once you install the guide wire, find a suitable location for your base. Hopefully it's not on top of wood chips. Okay, so you have to make 4 connections. You got the right perimeter wire, the left side, and also the guide wire in the middle. And then off to the bottom right corner is where you put in that 28 volt line. It's kind of interesting that the bottom of the dock is kind of exposed to the weather. Also, you got some charging contacts and that little indicator letting you know that everything's set up properly. Alright, so the last thing we have to do is install the 28 volt line, but you can see how I installed the perimeter wire. It has these fancy clips which are pressure fitted, so once you clamp them on, it actually cuts the insulation. There's no soldering, and now once we install the power, we should have a nice green light. Well, if you set up everything right, you should get a nice solid green wire. Now, for example, if there's a break in the connection, the unit will flash blue, letting you know that either the perimeter wire or the guide wire is not connected properly. I can't get over how quiet this thing is. I literally can run it at night. in the morning without disturbing the neighbors. Now, one thing to note, unlike a traditional lawnmower, which actually has a large blade, this guy uses razor blades, which basically cuts 1/8 of an inch at a time from the top of the grass. So if you have very long grass, like in the back there, this mower will struggle. So I do recommend going around the area and using a traditional mower to cut the grass down. And then if you run this guy every day, it should be able to maintain your yard. So this mower does have an application. It communicates over Bluetooth. Unfortunately, there's no Wi-Fi, cellular, or GPS. But despite not having these, the robot still was able to go to a different area to mow, which is pretty nice. I can leave the front gate open and have it mow my front yard without having to do anything. Now, once it's done, it will just go back to its docking station, or you can manually tell it to go back home. Alright, let's see what's included in the box. Now, depending on how complex your yard is or how big it is, you might want to have to get an expansion kit. Now, I chose to go with Husqvarna because they had different sizes. This is the large kit, which comes up to, like, I believe, 1,300 feet of wire. It also comes with like 1,000 stakes, which surprisingly, I used all the stakes in my yard. I probably overdid it. Well, when you open up the box, make sure you punch out the cardboard rulers. Kind of wish they were made out of plastic because cardboard and wet grass doesn't really mix. Yep, my rulers fell apart over time. Okay, so the robot itself is nicely packaged, comes with an instruction manual, and one interesting thing I noticed is the transformer is actually branded by Husqvarna. Not sure if the companies work together, but that was just one thing I noticed. It's interesting that the docking station doesn't have any cover in the back there. It just exposes the connections to the weather, which is kind of unfortunate. Not sure how well the wires will hold up over time. But the robot itself looks fairly nice, and Gardena is known for its like turquoise blue. As you can see, the 3 razor blades right there, and yes, you can get extra ones for about $10 for a pack of 30. Okay, so let's go and talk about my overall experience so far. Been using this guy for about, I don't know, a week or so. I think this robot's pretty nice. One thing to know is the boundary wire setup was kind of a pain, I'll be honest with you. It took me a while to set up, but once you have it set up, hopefully you don't have to worry about doing it again. As long as the wire doesn't get cut or some significant damage is caused to the wire, it should be pretty reliable. Alright, let's have a look at the application here. Communicates over Bluetooth, so you have to be fairly close to the robot. Alright, so the interface is pretty straightforward. You have a start, spiral cut, and also return to home. Now, if we jump into scheduling, there's actually 2 options, manual scheduling and automatic. With the automatic mode, kind of asks some information about your lawn, how big is it, also if you want to mow in the nighttime, in the daytime, and then it will best guess what's the best days to mow your lawn. The last thing you can set up is when you want to skip days. Maybe you want to skip Tuesdays and Fridays, those are your off days. Okay, so the manual mode is pretty straightforward. One interesting thing is you can set how long you want the robot to mow for, but unfortunately you can't mow for less than 30 minutes, even though it scrolls down less than 30 minutes. Okay, so let's go and jump back to the main menu and we'll jump into the product settings. Now you have several different configurations. One interesting thing, you can rename the robot, set a pin code. Now we also have the option to do some more settings. For example, avoid the house, which basically leaves space for the docking station. You got eco mode, you got a frost sensor. Starting point basically allows the robot to set how far it goes along the perimeter wire before doing its random pattern. And lastly, loop signal. Does a unique signal, so make sure you have that set up prior to running the robot the first time. So here's where you can set up 3 different zones. To go to the front yard, I did have to do some trial and error and play with the numbers, but eventually I was able to figure out how far along the guide wire the robot has to get to go to that area. Robot being able to go past the guide wire, so for example, you can adjust that to how you like it. Okay, so that's a pretty quick overview of the application. Let's go ahead and give you my final thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons. Maybe the cons first. Even though it's not the robot's fault that it does require a perimeter wire, just how it's made, it does require some time and some effort if you're doing it manually. Now, my installation took about 11 hours, and my yard isn't terribly big, but definitely spend extra time to make sure the setup is done correctly so you don't have any issues down the road. We'll see how long this perimeter wire setup lasts. Alright, so the next thing is since this robot communicates only over Bluetooth, it's kind of slow to respond. Also, you have to be fairly near to the robot for it to communicate with the application. Okay, let's talk about the docking station. Even though it's fairly nice, I kind of wish they were able to add a cover just to keep the moisture out of the installation, the wires. Now, you can buy a cover. I think it's like a $150 accessory, which does cover up the wires. But really, Gardena, if this thing's sitting outside, at least think about the long-term effect once wires are exposed. So since this doesn't use GPS, if someone walks away with the robot, they're able to probably guess your PIN code. It's fairly easy, it's just a 4-digit number. So just be mindful of that. Keep a watchful eye on your little guy, or he might end up in a new home. Now let's talk about the pros. I do like the fact that it has the self-recharge capabilities, and also it works pretty well even though it only has a single guide wire. It's able to quickly find its docking station. Now if you have trouble with the robot not finding its docking station, do a couple things. Make sure the docking station is level. Also make sure the guide wire is out pretty far in the middle of your yard so the robot can find it eventually while bouncing around randomly. Well, I want to just pause for a moment and give you guys a huge thanks. You guys are awesome for watching my videos. And if you stuck towards the end, thank you so much. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name's Nathan. I try to do a lot of cool product reviews, mainly aimed on robotics, but I try to do other things as well. Alright, be safe out there. Have a great rest of your summer. Adios.